Hello, welcome to this presentation on ISO 30042 compliant term bases. The ISO standard on TBX is 30042 Management of Terminology Resources Term-Based Exchange, TBX. The purpose of this standard is to standardize the back matter structure of term-based files, where CAT developers prefer to limit the compatibility of the files produced within their systems and the systems of other CAT tools to protect market share, protect sales. The market continues to call for compatibility among the files produced and used in CAT tools. If localization managers and project managers can create term bases in one tool, and then authors and translators could then easily open them in whatever other content authoring or translation tool that they're using, that would contribute to accessibility, flexibility, and efficiency in a way that is not possible under current models. That's okay. The ISO 30042 standard includes strategies for overcoming this. And in this seminar, you'll learn some strategies for how to overcome this as well. The ISO 30042 TBX standard is also important in that it provides guidance on how term bases can be designed to start small while leaving room for really big growth. The standard features 4 dialects of ISO 30042 compliant term bases: core, min, basic, and linguist. The last one, linguist, is not pictured here. Note that in this context, the word dialect is used to mean a variation of a 30042 compliant term base. So in this context, dialect is not used in the sense that we sometimes use it to talk about language variants. You can learn more about ISO 30042 and the TBX dialects at tbxinfo.net. So these dialects of TBX term bases are described in the 2018 paper, TBX Dialects Making Exchange Work for You by Dr. Sue Ellen Wright, former chair of Technical Committee 37 on Language and Terminology of the International Organization for Standardization. A resource is included in your LOC 501 Terminology for Beginners course called TBX Dialects Side-by-Side Comparison. That resource has been written based off of Wright's paper. As you will see when comparing the TBX dialects in the handout, TBX dialects are built based on the idea of telescoping. So what is this idea of telescoping? Well, think for a moment how a telescope works. As the telescope is extended longer, it presents a more detailed view of the horizon. When the telescope is not extended at all, the view is more far off. We extend the telescope, we get a more specific view. This metaphor conveys the same strategy behind standardized TBX dialects. So let's look at the comparison handout that is attached to this lesson. As you compare the dialects of TBX, you'll see a familiar organization. All dialects are built according to the hierarchy of concept level, which is called entry level in multi-term, language level, which is called the index level in multi-term, and term level. Certain information is automatically collected within the term base at the concept level, no matter the dialect. The creation date, the last modified date, the created by, and the last modified by fields. These are called responsibility categories, and whatever terminology application or translation application that you're using is automatically going to create those fields in your term base at the concept level. A big picture comparison of the different dialects shows that the dialects become more detailed. That is, they collect more information as one moves from the TBX core dialect, pictured on the left, to the TBX linguist dialect, pictured on the right. Starting with the TBX core dialect, note that only the most basic information is collected. The terms in whatever languages are represented in the term base are about the only data points collected. You can think of the TBX core dialect as represented by a simple bilingual table. Next, there's the TBX min dialect. to which essential information such as the subject field, a customer subset, and administrative status are added. Within terminology standards, the collection of the subject field is considered a best practice, and we want to collect that again at the concept level. The administrative status might include whether a term is preferred, admitted, not recommended, deprecated, things of that nature. Next, there is the TBX basic dialect, to which much more robust information is added, such as the definition, usage status, and context. Note that in this construct, the definition is added at the concept level, which, as I discussed previously, is not my recommendation, because it assumes that a single definition in one language applies to every term collected in the entry, no matter the languages in which the term is collected. That's problematic for a number of reasons. Term location is a field added to this dialect that is useful in circumstances in which a term is used within a graphical user interface, or a GUI for short, without much further context. So in term location, you could put an image or something like that that shows, hey, this button name, this is what it looks like in context. Next, there's the TBX Linguist dialect, which is the most robust of the ISO 30042 dialect types. In this dialect, much more detailed data about terminology is added, including reading notes, grammatical number, and a section for transfer comments in which information about the origins of any terminology imported into a term base could be collected. And then there are the dialects that individuals can invent as well. So as long as the dialect you invent organizes data categories or the fields collected in the term base in a way that is compliant with ISO 30042, there's a lot of room for designing dialects that meet the very specific purposes and use cases of an organization. So note that when comparing these dialects, that they have been built in a way in which new data categories, again, data categories are the fields for the collection of specific information types within a term base, so that these new data categories can be added to the term base over time without requiring much rework on the structure of the term base. To illustrate what I'm talking about here, in multi-term, once you start adding terms to your term base, you can no longer edit and rearrange certain fields within the term base. You would have to start over from scratch if you wanted a different structure. So by setting up a term base in a way that is compliant with ISO 30042, you can work around this issue by making it easy to add new data fields to your term base in an organized way. This allows you to make your term base more robust over time too, since if you get started by building a term base based on the core dialect in a spreadsheet, which is how many organizations start their terminology management work, the structure of that spreadsheet can be easily converted to a min dialect and converted to TBX format within a computer-assisted translation tool or a content authoring tool. Later, when you decide you're ready to take the data within your min dialect term base to the next level, you just can add the new data categories to term bases that already have entries if your overall structure has been well designed and designed in a way that permits these new data categories to be collected. Other ways you can ensure the long-term applicability of your term base is by adding optional fields at every single level, such as adding a note field to every single level of the term base. People may want to keep notes that apply to an entire concept. They may want to keep notes that apply to all of the terms for a concept in a single language. They may want to keep notes about specific terms. So a best practice is to include note at every single level so that you can allow folks to keep the observations that they have about terminological entries at the appropriate level of that entry. That concludes this presentation on ISO 30042 compliant term bases.